Okay, welcome to Unit 1. In the first of the two videos that we will allot to this unit, the first unit would be specific to Chapter 1 of the assigned book. Here, we try to understand the basics of critical thinking and try to see what is the rationale for learning critical thinking. Now, Einstein seemed to have said that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And this course is about thinking and thinking well. And we'll talk about how to do so. Okay, this is the quick outlook of what we'll do in this video lecture. First, we'll talk about the need for critical thinking. Then we try to define critical thinking. Then we discuss whether it can be learned, if there is any evidence to suggest that. Then we talk about the relationship or lack of it between critical thinking and intelligence. Then we'll talk about the schema, and we'll end this video lecture by introducing you to two systems of thinking. So let's get started with the first outcome for the need for the critical thinking. Let's look at some examples. There are 6% of Americans believe the moon landing was staged, according to a survey in 2009. And 20% of adults thought that sun revolves around the Earth and that Earth is flat. So this shows that there's something wrong in how we form our knowledge or beliefs. This is one example, and we can look at other examples. For instance, power bands. These are called power balance wristbands. They're supposed to somehow improve your energy flexibility and balance. The price is $30, but it has been very popular, sold over 2.5 million products, um, and uh, it was endorsed by an athlete. But there was no evidence to suggest that it was effective. I strongly suggest you to read the book. The point I'm trying to make from these two examples is that human reasoning is not up to the mark. Humans are known not to be good reasoners, and our decision-making skills are not reliable either, right? They are not rational. We are susceptible to fake news, which is wrong information. Disinformation is misinformation with an intention to change your behavior. Then there are lots of biased information consumption where we look for information that matches our beliefs. And we'll talk more about this as we go through this series of video lectures. All these suggest that we as humans are not equipped with the capacity to be able to think critically about the information presented to us. If you think about it, it's kind of makes sense. Why? Because when through evolution, developed a system that is more quick than accurate, more automatic than, um, precise. And this quick automatic perceptual system or cognitive system was developed for our survival. Current world, the kind of decisions we make and the kind of information we are given doesn't need us to necessarily be automatic or quick. In fact, it requires us to slow down. It's ironic that on the one hand, our system has developed to be quick and automatic, but to be an effective evaluator of the information, you need to actually stop. As I was telling earlier, the kind of evolution we went through doesn't fit the kind of world we are in now. For instance, according to a report, New York Times Weekly contains more information than you actually experience in your lifetime. There are other reports suggest that average humans gets exposed to a lot of information. The question is, do you slow down? Do you evaluate? Do you critically think about this information? Or you just use this information like any other perceptual information you use to make quick decisions, like walking, talking, reading? Too much of information requires us to not to be automatic, but to be more controlled in our thinking. One problem with the presence of too much of information is that we don't know which information is reliable versus which is not, right? Because there is abundance of information. We don't know which one is credible, right? And it's as if the internet has democratized the knowledge so everybody can learn information from everywhere, and anybody can put the information on the internet for anyone to consume. But the question is, how do you know if this information is correct? That's one of the skills that you have to develop as a critical thinker, is to not take the information as it comes to you by the face value, but to actually check the credibility of the information before you take it into your system. Critical thinking is the only way we can bring about a change that would be helpful for the future generations, and also to develop a sustainable, peaceful world. If you look at the immediate benefits of it, you can see that most of the employers want the skills that we will learn in this class specific to critical thinking. The system of democracy that we are proud of would work only when the people that make up that system are responsible in how they make decisions, which requires you to use the critical thinking skills. And at least for that reason, I hope you stay tuned for learning these skills in the upcoming video lectures. Now that we talked about the need for critical thinking, the next question is, what is critical thinking? Now, I want you to think back to the framework that we discussed earlier, where both thinking and knowledge are dynamically related. Thinking is a process of using knowledge to make sense of the new information. In doing so, you're also updating the knowledge base, right? Now, process of thinking can be deliberate, conscious, effortful, and goal-directed, or it could be purposeless, unreasonable, automatic. There is no one clear definition of critical thinking that you will encounter. Research reviewing the literature on critical thinking come up with these features. Thinking that is more purposeful, reasoned, goal-directed, and it uses words like cognitive skills, strategies for desirable outcomes. It also talks about the attitude and approach to information. So in the next slide, we will come to some broader definition. Just by looking at its name, we know that it's a form of thinking, right? It is a form of thinking, but this form of thinking is critical. So the question is, what is critical about critical thinking then? One way to look at the critical aspect of critical thinking is that it is a form of thinking. In that sense, it is a process, right? With a purpose, right? And this process of thinking is critical in the sense that for whatever reason you are thinking about something, you have some evaluative aspect to it. Meaning that, let's say you are going through a thinking process of making a decision to buy a car. So you went through some thinking process and come up with an outcome, right? The evaluative aspect of the critical thinking is that you will reflect on the outcome. And when you reflect on the outcome, the approach is uh, constructive. So you're looking at, okay, is this a good decision? Is it a good outcome? What are good things about it? What are bad things about it? So you're kind of looking at reflecting on your own decisions you've made with the intention to improve it. That's one evaluative aspect. The other evaluative aspect is evaluating the process that went into the outcome. Question is this reasoning process logical enough for me to rely on it? There is this aspect of metacognition. Metacognition is the word we'll use in this class, and we'll come back to this construct later on, evaluating your own thinking. So that's where you are evaluating the product and the thinking process itself. Now, there is one particular definition from 60s, and we'll talk more about that in the next slide. Okay, so coming to the definition I was referring to, and I want to confirm whether it is Bertrand Russell or somebody else who was quoted as saying this or referring to this potential definition. There is one definition of critical thinking. Remember, we talked about the framework of thinking and knowledge? Those things are here. Critical thinking involves thinking skills, knowledge, plus attitudes. To be a good critical thinker, you need to have critical thinking skills, the cognitive skills, which we will learn in this class, and a certain type of knowledge, a certain kind of attitude. Attitude here refers to dispositions, which we'll talk more about in the next slide. Critical thinking skill has the thinking skill part, knowledge part, and attitude, with the goal to overcome fallacies or biases. A constant goal as a critical thinker is to make sure you overcome such fallacies. You can overcome such fallacies when you learn those fallacies, which you will do in this class. And that's related to the processes part, right? You're using thinking skills with a goal to overcome the fallacies related to knowledge is the goal to understand the information at a deeper and meaningful level. You're not just knowing the information for the knowing sake, but you have thought thoroughly through the information. We'll talk about strategies to internalize information and stays there for long-term retention. Then comes attitude. Remember, we talked in the last slide about critical thinking being evaluative of the process product of thinking, right? So attitude to evaluate the outcome and the reasoning behind the outcome. But also comes with attitude dispositions, the kind of mindset you're supposed to have that we'll talk about in the next slide. So coming to dispositions, I really want you to read the entirety of the description provided in the book because that gives you a comprehensive understanding of the attitudes and dispositions that a critical thinker needs to have. I'm going to briefly talk about some of the characteristics. One being persistent. When you encounter a complex task, you need to be patient and be perseverant throughout till you finish accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish. Then the disposition to think, right, in a planned fashion. Think about all the steps, planful thinking, incorporate all perspectives related to the content that you're trying to think critically about. Don't be rigid, be flexible, and be open-minded. Most of the times, this is where people get stuck. You cannot be a critical thinker if you cannot be open to other possibilities. That's where the evaluative component, you have to evaluate your own thinking process. For that, you need to be flexible. You need to be open-minded to accept this could be potentially wrong. You have to be flexible and willing to learning. Now, the next question is, can critical thinking be learned? Well, the answer is yes, and that's why we have this course, and that's why you plan to take this course, right? There is empirical research to show that people can improve their skills. Taking as many courses related to logic would be beneficial. Coming to the relationship between critical thinking and intelligence, go back and read the chapter to get a comprehensive thing. Mine is a quick summary. There are different kinds of intelligence. There is general intelligence versus multiple intelligences. There is no good way of assessing intelligence. It's very important that is it valid? Is it measuring what it's measuring? Okay, now we'll move on to our next learning outcome, which is schema. Schema is a very interesting construct. We'll talk more about schema in the next video lecture when we talk about memory, but I'll give you a brief idea. Schema is the generalized knowledge about situations. Let me give you an example. Let's say you go to McDonald's. What do you do first? It's not drive-through. Okay, you park the car, you enter, what do you do next? You go and sit at the table and wait for the, no, right? Where do you go? Okay, you go to the counter, okay, give your order. I can hear you, yeah. That's your favorite? Okay. Then what do you do? Pay. Okay. Then stand here. Okay. Then wait for your number or name to be called. Okay. What do you do next? You pick up your order and go and find a table, sit and eat. Okay. What do you do if you go to a dining restaurant like Applebee's, for instance? Do you go to the counter and order? No. Oh, okay. What do you do then? Oh, you enter and stand there, wait for them till they come and ask you and take you to a table, then give you the menu, ask you what you want for beverages, then come back to take the order. You make the order, you get the, okay, I get it. So here is the thing. How do you know this? Do you remember when you learned how to order at McDonald's? How to order at Applebee's? How these two are different? Can you give me one instance of when you learned? You cannot. You don't even try. So the point I'm trying to make is that this generalized knowledge is after you've experienced events or situations multiple times in multiple contexts. You've gone to Applebee's, you've gone to McDonald's, you've gone to different kinds of restaurants, and over time, you've understood the patterns, and these patterns resulted in creating a generalized knowledge about the world, situations. This is called situational knowledge. Situational generalized knowledge. That is schema. We have schemas for restaurants. We have schemas for movies. We have schemas for weddings. We have schemas for classrooms. This dictate what we expect in those situations And this will also help us behave in certain ways that you're supposed to behave in those situations. So that active organization of our past experiences is schema. And if you want to learn more, take my cognitive class. We discuss a lot about this. And what happens with this is that when you enter that situation again, this information gets activated and that will help you understand. Remember, new information, you make sense of it by using old information. The old information here would be networks. Of course, there's an issue with it. The problem is your understanding of your new experiences is as good as your past experiences, right? Schemas influence your experiences and your experiences create schemas. That's the irony. So the last outcome for this video lecture is to talk about the two systems of thinking. Remember, we've been talking about critical thinking as effortful, more thought out, slow process. We'll talk about two forms of thinking presented by Daniel Kahneman. There are two kinds of thinking, if you may, and he calls them two systems, system one thinking and system two thinking. System one thinking is automatic, effortless, more rapid. It's more like your intuition. Whatever you do quickly, that happen in the realm of system one. So all the biases that we talked about come as a result of system one thinking, which is rapid, automatic. System two thinking is more effortful, logical, analytical, slow, and introvert. To explain in detail, I want you to answer this question. A bat and a ball cost $1.10. Bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? What's your answer? Okay, did you say 10 cents? If you said that, you used your intuition, your system one thinking. The common incorrect answer is 10 cents. The correct answer is 5 cents. Hold on. So a bat and a ball, right? Bat and a ball cost is a ball, okay? That's $1.10. A bat costs $1 more than the ball. So bat's cost is $1 more than the ball's cost. Now, with this information here, so bat is equal to 1 plus balls plus this existing ball, okay, would give you $1.10, right? So if you bring this here, then it will be 2 balls is equal to $1.10 minus $1, which is 10 cents, but it doesn't end here, right? For 1 ball, it is 10 cents over 2, which is 0.05. But the intuitive answer when you use system 2 is 10 cents, not 5 cents, because that's quick, not control. That's an error of system 1 thinking. But you can be saying 0.05 or 5 cents equally faster only when you become an expert in this type of questions. So that's where the difference is between experts and novices. We are novices in most of our contexts in our lives. We are expert in one and we are jacks of all trades. So when you go to a doctor, an expert, gone through very meticulously the process of logical thinking required to be a doctor and spend countless hours and years in learning those skills. Expertise will result in turning this slow, effortful, critical thinking into a quicker one. Practice makes one perfect. So even though critical thinking is effortful, in a given context, you can be a critical thinker by using just system one. For that, you need to practice. Thinking automatically comes at a cost, not only because it's not necessarily precise, right? But also because fast thinking can be influenced by factors that don't need to be involved in making a decision. For instance, emotions can influence your decision sometimes. When you're taking a decision, the decision should be based on the given. You're coming with a solution and make a decision. Our rationality is bounded by our affective state. Affective here referring to emotional state. In fact, there is one study where participants would be given warm or cold coffee. Participants with warm coffee evaluate the other person as warmer compared to participants who were given cold coffee. The state of your body can also influence your thinking. and your decision making phases so that you can be a good critical thinker. I hope you like this journey of becoming a critical thinker, and stay tuned, and don't forget to work on any assignments for this unit, but also keep reading the book. See you in the next video.